Hello, hello. It's Joy Foster, founder of Tech Fixies and the host of the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. And I'm really excited about this series that we're running. We're doing a whole series on how to market different businesses. So we've already talked to an underwear company. We've talked to a women's clothing company. And now we're going to shift gears and go a little bit deeper into the travel industry. Prior to this interview, I interviewed a CEO of travel counselors, and we talked all about what it's like to be a travel counselor. We also have women in our community at Tech Pixies in our social media magic program who have Airbnbs. So they're Airbnb hosts or they run hotels. We've got a wonderful woman named Yvonne who has been building up her hotel in Jamaica live on Instagram as she's been doing her course, which has been a lot of fun. We've got a lot of jealous Tech Pixies who want to be in Jamaica right now with her and cannot wait till the travel restrictions end. What I wanted to do today, though, was bring on some experts, absolute true champions in the Airbnb space, to the extent that they've had news articles written about them that have been published in the paper. They were booked out all the time. So I want to get their tips and tricks on marketing an Airbnb. So welcome to the show, Lee Jay and Amanda. I'm so delighted that you're here. And give us a little bit of background, a little bit of history. Tell us about you and how you got into the Airbnb business.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for having us. First, it's great to be here.
Yeah. Thank you, Joy, for inviting us over. Where do we start? I guess Amanda and I have been together for about 15 years or so. And when we first got together, I quickly realized that I was a very lucky man because Amanda is an amazing cook, chef, not via profession, but just very talented. And I always said to Amanda, I said to her, you should be on MasterChef. And then a couple of years in and a few bottles of wine one evening, I opened up the laptop and I said to Amanda, why don't you enter MasterChef? And she did and got through to the quarterfinals. So that was the start of our, actually, food is a real passion point, and coupled with going abroad often, or actually not even abroad, here in the UK, taking cheeky trips to boutique hotels. And we realized that actually one day we'd love to run a boutique accommodation business, coupled with my sort of jazz hands, front of house, candles and atmos, shall we call it, and Amanda's talent for food. And that's really where it all started. We quickly realized we were both passionate about travel, food, hotels, etc.
Yeah. And I think just to give a bit of background, both of us come from a marketing background. So we've worked in various different roles in media agencies, media owners and big platforms. Lee Jay worked at Facebook for many years, and I'm sure we'll touch on that because it came in handy when marketing our own business. But you talk with, Airbnb, what a brilliant platform. Our first experience of launching on Airbnb was when we had our own flat in Wimbledon, and obviously the tennis championship happened every summer, and it was a great opportunity to generate some more revenue. We had a spare room, and we decided, right, let's rent out our room while the Wimbledon championships were on. So we did that.
We did.
And we had some incredible guests, one of whom I think was one of the original kind of leaders at Airbnb.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
And he came to stay, and we were like, oh my God, okay, like we need to brush our socks up. I'm going to have to do breakfast for him and make sure the experience is incredible. And he absolutely loved his stay with us, and we became really good friends. And you still are in touch with him now.
Yeah.
But that was our first experience, I suppose, of hosting people, the art of hospitality, and really helped us almost just sort of solidify in our own minds, this is really something we want to do. So fast forward a few years later, we ended up buying a barn in the middle of Herefordshire in the Malvern Hills, 9,000 square foot, 12 acres. And we spent about 2 years renovating it, plotting and planning, what this vision for what would become the Bull Shed. And we had lots of fun brainstorming the name, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I love that name. So the Bull Shed is what it was called.
Yeah.
We nearly, although Amanda skipped a little bit here, depending on how much of the full story you and your community.
We like the full story, Lee.
So there's a few bits and pieces that we Amanda seemed to have missed there, such as we spent about a year traveling from London to Italy almost every single month, because we got married in Italy. And we, of course, love Italian food, wine and weather and the people. And we at least a year, we were going to and from sort of central Italy over to sort of Tuscany, northern Umbria, traveling the countryside, seeing many, many rusticas that we thought actually we'd love to, sort of renovate completely and set up over there. After about a year, we kind of came to our senses. I don't think my nerves could have taken it, to be brutally honest with you. So our Italian was coming along, but it still wasn't fluent enough. So we thought, actually, let's try it in the UK.
Yeah, I think launching your own business is tough enough when you're doing it in a market you don't speak the language. I was learning. I was going to classes once a week, but yeah, trying to get your head around the laws and the logistics and sort of quite complex, fairly debatable kind of areas in Italian law. I was a bit like, maybe we should try this in the UK first.
Well, that's so interesting that you say that, because my mom's partner, who's been in my life for, nearly 2 decades now, he did do that 40 or 50 years ago. They went and they renovated a Borgo in Italy. So at the top of this hill, but they don't, it's only private use and it's only for them. Yeah. But just the politics around that was huge. And I had a girlfriend who wanted to go and renovate a home in Italy. And I warned her. Let me just say I warned her.
Yes, absolutely. You've got to have nerves of steel for that kind of stuff. There was a lot of grey, shall we say, when we actually found a beautiful, beautiful property that was scary to look at and think of the amount of work that needed doing. But and we got hugely excited about it. But when we started getting down to the nuts and bolts, there was an awful lot of grey that could have taken us financially into a whole different level of pain, to be honest, that we weren't prepared to go down. But nevertheless, we came back to, we did, as Amanda said, once we'd sort of said, actually, let's give this a go in the UK. Then for us, it was a matter of identifying, okay, there's beautiful properties all over the world, here in the UK and all over the world. So how are we going to stand out? What makes us different from perhaps our competitors there? And that was really important. We're both passionate about beautiful properties and so on. We'd renovated a few properties ourselves and come from homes where very lucky our parents sort of loved maintaining a beautiful home and so on. But we found we were very lucky. And again, we sort of traveled the UK trying to find a building that had a little bit of something different about it. And we stumbled across this fantastic, as Amanda mentioned before, red brick barn, which was early 1800s, next door to a beautiful Tudor house that used to be the Bishop of Hereford's hunting lodge, as you do. And this gigantic barn needed extensive renovation work to it to make it truly habitable and a beautiful property. But it was exceptionally handsome. The brickwork itself and everything was very imposing, and it overlooked the Malvern Hills. So I knew when I looked at that, I thought, it's a bit of a blank canvas. I know what needs to be done here. And I knew that beautiful barn, coupled with Amanda's amazing talent for food and my eye for candles, atmos, and opening a fantastic bottle of wine for my guests, hopefully would deliver something of wow factor.
Yeah, so for those of you who are watching live on Facebook, we've got actually the montage of images showing, but you're right, it is absolutely stunning. And it's just incredible. So tell us how you were able to turn this into something that people could stay in and rent from, and actually how you started really getting recognized for what you were doing.
So I suppose obviously the first thing was getting the property kind of where we wanted it to be, and that was very much your kind of vision, I suppose. So as I said before, we spent 2 years renovating, and we started we started small. So we kind of renovated one section of the barn, which enabled us to have 2 bedrooms to start with that we could start marketing and renting out to our guests. And we initially did that through Airbnb, I think. But I suppose before all of that, we did so much to kind of set the vision, the brand, what was the kind of ethos that we wanted to portray, what was the experience that we wanted our guests to have. And all of that was, I suppose, a catalyst of ideas that we'd had for so many years as we built towards this vision and dream. The bit we didn't mention in our story was a week after we moved into the barn, I found out I was pregnant.
Yes.
So it was like a classic episode of, Grand Designs. It was just like, okay, here we go, just about to embark on a big renovation project and take on the biggest things of our lives. Yeah. So I actually spent most of my maternity leave, because while we were doing this project, this was our side hustle. We still had full-time jobs in London. So we were commuting to London 4 days a week, coming back to the barn at the weekends, overseeing the renovations.
Wow.
It was actually only when I went off on mat leave, I was like, right, I need to build a website, get our social media up and running, get a logo, build a sign, right? It was just like, I just kind of went into crazy overdrive in terms of getting our proposition ready, because I knew that we wanted to open, sort of pretty soon after that period. So at the start was, kind of building our brand and identity. And actually, this is where social media came into its own, and using our own network. So I remember we posted a post to go, right, we need someone to help us build a logo, because it was like, that's where we started. We had the name, we had the vision, right, we're not graphic designers, let's build a logo. So we reached out, and a friend of a friend's
my
husband.
Boss, actually.
Your old boss.
My old boss at Virgin Radio, her husband Lee, said, I do all this all the time. I'd be more than happy to do a logo for you and so on. And Amanda had already pulled together sort of what she wanted, more or less, which was fab. And then Lee just sort of made it come to light.
Did all the kind of technical stuff that, would have taken me ages to do on my own.
And which social media network did you end up going with first?
To be honest with you, rather than going for one, we went for Facebook and Instagram at the same time.
Yeah.
Because to be brutally honest with you, most people use both, but they just use them slightly differently. And so
now we got to remind the viewers that you actually are a Facebook. You were a Facebook employee.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm selling Facebook. And
we love Facebook here at Tech Fixies. Yeah. So the Tech Fixies has been built on Facebook, quite literally. So I'm not an anti-Facebook person. But I know it's a little bit like being a banker, right? You got to be like, I work for Facebook, but.
Good news, I don't anymore, so I can be fairly free in my speech. But in the grand scheme of things, and I always, in fact, I've got dear friends at this moment in time over in Levy, and they've built a fantastic boutique B&B, so that guests can come and stay in the Northern Lights and so on, and watch the Northern Lights. And
I want to hear about that too.
Really good. But I was saying to Paul and Aggie, his other half, just the other week, I said, if you can design, Instagram's obviously a beautiful, beautiful platform. So if you can design your photos and your posts for Instagram, and of course, it's so easy to share it then across to your Facebook page as well, you'll capture everybody in the grand scheme of things. Design for Instagram, and it will stand out beautifully on Facebook. So if you do that, that without question is the way forward. But when we were trying to achieve guests to our B&B in those early stages, it was as much about Facebook, Instagram, and of course Airbnb, and making sure that our profile on Airbnb, and particularly in the early days for the rooms. In fact, I think we didn't even have a website in those very, very early days, because as Amanda said, I think had we had Leo, or we were just about to have Leo, and Amanda was juggling things and so on. So it was a matter of Airbnb can be our test. We'll pop a Facebook and Instagram page up and running, and we'll get to the website as soon as possible, which Amanda did amazingly whilst looking after Leo as well, I think, wasn't it?
But yeah,
I think that's an important point, though, for a lot of people to know that in today's world of technology, you can start on social media, and then you can leverage already existing platforms like Airbnb to test out the idea without having to go all the way to creating your own website.
Yeah, our website came later. We used Airbnb, as Lee Jay said, Facebook, TripAdvisor. We set up, a page on that. We really wanted to kind of capture our guests' experience in those early days. We knew that having good kind of reviews and those testimonials was really important.
As important, to be honest with you, and you say early days, actually just throughout the whole lot. We were very lucky that we have 5 out of 5 star reviews for every single guest that ever stayed there. And actually then a couple of years on, as people like the Sunday Times then started to discover us, in addition coming and doing their own research, of course, as you would expect, it was so important for them to look at those reviews and sort of say, look, your guests are wax lyrical about you and what you're producing here. And so therefore we have confidence in putting you in the top 100 hotels in the country, or be the best B&B in the country, as we got accoladed further down the
this is a great point, because a lot of people would love to know the tips and tricks to getting 5-star reviews. I mean, it sounds like a huge part of your strategy was having a really clear vision for what you wanted, and then just over delivering in terms of the quality and the experience that they had. Is that what it boiled down to, or was there are there some other tips and tricks you can tell us to getting a 5-star review?
Yeah, I think for us, it was absolutely all about delivering that experience that we set out to create. And that centered around, amazing food, the most comfortable bed you've ever slept in. For us, it was like bed and breakfast. They're the 2 most important things: an amazing bed, an amazing breakfast. So we kind of started there, and everything else followed. But it was all around following the things that we're passionate about. So sourcing local food, only using local suppliers, and really making sure that was an integral part of the whole experience. Making sure that when people came to stay, that they felt at home. We kind of pitched ourselves almost like a home from home. It was, you're coming to stay in a beautiful environment, but there's no pretense. If you want to walk around in your pajamas and your slippers, that's fine. Lee Jay will go and fetch you a gin and tonic and light the fire. So it was very much like we were living and breathing the art of hospitality, but it was, how did we translate that then to reach new audiences through social media, but also, ensuring that our guests shared that experience. So we were quite open about asking people to leave a review. And I'd say to any of your kind of community, if they're running businesses, don't be afraid to ask for feedback, and encourage people to do that, because a lot of our guests were more than happy to do that, weren't they?
But it's really interesting, because we have a student who's actually set up a ukulele boot camp, so people can learn how to play the ukulele in a week. It's a really fun experience, and for a lot of people in lockdown, it's been immensely useful to learn how to play an instrument. And interestingly enough, they're launching again right now, and another boot camp, and they sent out an email to their list, which has grown quite a bit over the last couple months because they've been building this boot camp. And they said, hey guys, we really need your help. Go, and if you enjoyed your experience, go onto Facebook and drop in a 5-star review. So overnight, they got 19 5-star reviews, beautiful testimonials about what they did. They were able to turn that and craft that into emails to help promote the boot camp. And, I think if you ask people, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. But if you ask people, you might just be surprised at what comes through. We had another student, and both of you are on LinkedIn, but we had another student who her primary audience is on LinkedIn. So obviously what happens in our program is we teach all the different networks, and then we teach the 4 major networks plus Pinterest. So Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, And then we also teach Pinterest. And then what we're trying to do is help them navigate, okay, now that you understand all 5 of these, which, 2 or 3 are you going to leverage for you? And so we have one gal who does training in the home space, but it's more in the homelessness space. So helping councils and different organizations combat homelessness. So she's got a program on that she teaches. And so what she did was very similar. She just made it her mission. She was going to ask 100 people for a recommendation. And again, overnight, she got 15 recommendations, and she posted one of them in the group, and she was just teary-eyed because it was such an endorsement of who she was and what she was doing. And now it's all over her LinkedIn page, right? Because someone else in the industry who is reputable commented on her stuff. So I think you're right. Maybe the number one best thing to do is give them the best experience possible. Number 2 is then ask for the review, because if you don't ask for the review, you're not going to get them.
Yeah, I think the thing I'd add to this conversation, though, and I hope this is an important point, but it's around managing people's expectations, both in terms of when you go onto the website, try and be as clear as possible of what you're going to provide. And equally, then at the start of that journey, make sure they're, again, clear what you're just about to provide them with. Because, and I'll bring that to life a little bit. So the barn that we had created was also our home. It was our home in the week, the full extent of the barn. And then predominantly we ran the bull shed on a Friday, Saturday night, sometimes on a Thursday, depending. So it was a 2 or 3 night a week sort of stay. And people could either book out the whole of the barn that would accommodate 10, 12 people, or they could book room by room. Now, we ran those. If they booked out the whole of the barn, we would operate, I'd often refer it to a bit like a ski chalet. So we're around, we own the barn. And in fact, that's an important point as well, because it's an owner-run property. And if you make sure that people are really clear about that, they realize they haven't just kind of taken the whole rental and they can just go wild and wreck the place, or, all those kind of things. We are going to come in. We have to come in and do your breakfast for you. We might, we've got our team that will come and clean the rooms. We're going to be coming and doing the fire. Now, if you first of all make sure they know that upon booking, then you're managing expectations from the get-go, because there could have been many, many different times where people are like, whoa, the owners keep coming through, don't they? I thought we'd rented the whole house, and, we can't exactly go wild with the Sambuca shots, can we, with the owner coming through, So and that therefore could have led to a really awkward, you think that you've delivered the experience, but the communication is really, really key. And I mean, at the start of it, and again, particularly for the whole house hires, which obviously it was a good amount of money for us. It was everybody got amazing value out of it. Amanda often would do a feasting night and so on, and it was a fantastic environment. But I kind of always, everybody would arrive, I'd give them a glass of wine, and then I'd kind of do a house tour to make sure they knew what the rules of the house were, and that way they could see as well how much personal sort of pride had gone into creating the environment. So they were actually that much more careful about our property and what we were going to do. And in fact, they loved it. And back to Amanda's point before, they kind of felt like they were, and we made them welcome. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't like we were house masters all of a sudden, but everybody had a great time. They were always wax lyrical. A lot of people left like feeling they'd made friends. The other art, of course, in hospitality is knowing those people that you think you can have a good chat with, and actually those that frankly just come for a good break. So there are. And particularly with somebody like myself who's quite an extrovert, I've learned over the years knowing when, I think 9.5 times out of 10, knowing when to give people that kind of pieces of insight or chat or back off, and again, all those things are quite important.
That's so interesting. I hadn't even really thought about that side of it. We've only a couple of times we rented our house out. Like when we've gone on holiday, we just felt safer having someone in the house. Yeah. And yeah, we've had mixed experiences, and I think you're right, that expectation. And, one of the things that we did change on our Airbnb listing was, this is a family home. Like when we're on holiday, you're moving into our family home. So, expect photos and expect books and expect toys.
Yes.
And we cleaned it up as much as we could, but we had, and we did say on one of the things and actually I then updated it. I said, no, not suitable for infants or toddlers, because we have older children. But it was really interesting because I had said that. I said it wasn't suitable for toddlers or for children or for babies. And, these two couples came with their brand new babies for a New Year's Eve. And suddenly I got all these messages going like, you didn't dust underneath the bed and you didn't dust behind the bed. And I'm like, who dusts under the bed and who dusts behind the bed? And they're like, well, infants. And I'm like, there shouldn't be an infant there. This isn't an infant house.
You do have to second guess, I think, and we were much the same, because ours was at quite a vast open barn with a number of places that technically were not really suitable for a child. So again, we had to take that decision quite early on and work out who your audience, who's going to have the most appropriate time here, really, and who's going to enjoy the space, who's going to enjoy the environment. And so if we were renting out room by room, actually we would say absolutely no children at all, because you may have one couple that hasn't got children who are coming for a relaxing break and doesn't really want, as much as our property was, we were lucky, it's 8,500 square foot, so it's a large property. At the same time, we had a massive lounge where it would be cavernous and, the echoing sound. So if you had a 3, 4, 5-year-old running around, you've got this lovely couple that are trying to chill out, and then you've got another family over here. They're going to have two different experiences of what we were trying to provide there. So we had to make a call very early on. Unless you're taking the whole barn, there's absolutely no children allowed into the barn. Yeah. So understanding your audience, I think that's a key thing.
Yeah, and I guess building on that whole understanding your audience, when we set up and launched, I think we had in our minds an idea of who our audience and our guests would be. And actually it evolved over time. And this is again where Facebook sort of came into its own from a marketing perspective, is we were getting a lot of inquiries for whole house rentals. We hadn't really thought about that as being a key market for us. We'd always sort of envisaged it being more room by room, B&B kind of accommodation. But we quickly realised actually this private hire and accommodating groups, often who were coming to celebrate a birthday. And so we quickly honed in on kind of don't want the 30th, 40th birthdays because they kind of crash the place. But actually, we've had some lovely guests who are kind of celebrating their 50th or their 60th. So Lee Jay, being, sort of clever marketeer is on Facebook, actually we ran a campaign to target people who were kind of approaching their 50th or 60th birthday, promoting the barn as an ideal sort of venue for a celebration. And actually that campaign generated a shed loads of bookings for us.
That's amazing. Okay, so now we got to go into this. We got to go into this campaign because I know this is going to be great. So I love this, the idea of the parties, and I know what you mean with the 30 and the 40s. We actually rented an Airbnb for my 40th because I was doing the Ironman in Wales. And so I did tell them it is for my 40th birthday, but I'm doing the Ironman. So there's not going to be any partying.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, to be fair, we also thought to ourselves, well, we don't want hen do's and we don't want stag do's. But actually, we did take a couple of hen do's, and particularly in the earlier days, and actually they were lovely, lovely, lovely girls. We didn't take any stag do's. I didn't want that. So, but we had the hen do's. A couple, and they were great. And Amanda sort of says the 40th. We definitely had a 40th or two there.
Well, tell us about this campaign for the 50s and 60s.
I think what Amanda sort of said there is very true. So we had identified that our property that we had the ability to close a few doors and section it off. And so it was still one big property, but we had the ability to give people a little bit more privacy of having a section of the property. And that enabled us to sort of say, hey, look, if it's a special occasion, and obviously as Amanda says, 40th, 50th, 60th, 70th are special occasions. Come and take the barn, you know, you and 9 of your friends or your members of family. And so through the use of Facebook, Instagram targeting, I started to land our content to 39-year-olds, 49-year-olds, 59-year-olds, or actually, I think if I remember correctly, there's have you got a friend or family member upcoming that's 39, 49, 59? And so we would then think, okay, let's take some beautiful photos of the table laid out for dinner for one of the feasting menus that Amanda can do, or just use some of the existing materials that we had. You know, this is a great place to celebrate that big birthday event. And it worked superbly. It was a fantastic way of bringing in bookings, to be brutally honest.
And was it basically a conversion ad where you were collecting email addresses and then?
Yes, is the answer. Go onto the website and then sort of take a booking. Yes. Equally, though, what was quite interesting is often you'd get into the conversation when people would arrive and they'd say, yeah, I don't know how we really found your place. I think it was on Facebook or something along those lines, because clearly somebody had gone onto the website and then given us a call and taken the booking. So sometimes people just don't realize where they've discovered you.
Well, I found at Tech Fixies, what'll happen is when we do our ads for our free training, and we've now got this new brand new social media superhero boot camp, which is coming out at the end of this month. But what we find is when we do an ad, then people tag their friends. And then when we say, how did you hear about us? They actually say they heard about us from their friend, even though it's a Facebook ad, because when someone's tagging someone, it becomes a personal recommendation, not an ad to them.
Definitely.
100%. And I think with travel as well, you know, that personal recommendation is so important. And, you know, by discovering it via a friend on Facebook or Instagram, it feels personal. And so when Lee Jay says, when we'd ask people how they felt, they kind of go, oh, I'm not sure, maybe like through a friend or Facebook. But we knew, because we would be running ads and trying to target people, we kind of knew that that's possibly where they'd found us.
Yeah.
Or it was genuine, you know, word of mouth and that network. So when we got our first review in the Sunday Times, that was genuinely kind of a word of mouth recommendation. It was probably our 3rd ever guest who happened to be best friends with one of the luxury travel editors at the Sunday Times. Get in. And she said, you've got to go and, you know, check out this place. It's amazing. And, you know, and that was phenomenal for us, obviously, to get that recognition and coverage, such a prestigious kind of publication, national publication. And of course, we went to town in promoting that, you know, across all of our social media.
And again, social media, boosting it out to those people that like booties.
Well, that's my question. So did you create did you take a post and then boost them? I mean, you're part of you were part of the Facebook, you know, employee community. So did you boost them or did you create a custom conversion?
Well, a little bit of both, if I'm brutally honest. So often I'd identified that I'd like people that enjoy boutique hotels, maybe people that travel often in a certain age demographic, within a certain distance of us in the Malvern Hills. Because you often found that people were prepared to travel 3 or maximum, say, 4 hours. Much more than that, it's a bit of a long shot, if I'm brutally honest. So I sort of looked at that from an awareness perspective, but often even those awareness ads of just boosting content would result in some kind of somebody giving us a call or actually going onto the website and converting. But yes, I also took advantage of the outcome-led bidding system that the good old Facebook has, which is obviously converting.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with Facebook ads, part of our program, we have a Facebook ads workshop, which is run by our Facebook ads manager. And she clarifies a bit of the difference between boosting and custom conversions and then sales, you know, sales conversions, because there are nuances, right? You know, boosting can work, but also you don't necessarily know that the result is directly tied back to the ad, even though you can look at the analytics and kind of tell. And of course, with all the iOS changes, that's going to be interesting to be able to track the conversions, et cetera. So But what I'm also curious about is the kind of budget you use. I love your recommendation in terms of the local area. Obviously, if you're in a destination like Italy, you would have had a different strategy because you would have been targeting people in the UK that would have wanted to travel to Italy probably, or even outside of the UK. But so maybe touch on that, how you might have marketed the Italian property if you'd gone that way. Yeah. But also, I think just touch on the budget. Were you feeding Facebook regularly with the ads, or were you kind of on and off with them?
A little bit hit and miss, to be brutally honest with you. It depended upon how many bookings that we had got, how much visibility and so on. I mean, we were very lucky, particularly in the latter days, where we almost had 6 months ahead of ourselves of bookings. Absolutely chocker. So I didn't necessarily need to, but actually now and again, I perhaps would spend £25 here or £50 there, just boosting, just to keep a little bit of awareness out, so that you could keep the machine, the beast, sort of going, so to speak. Because obviously everybody that runs any kind of accommodation business, if you can get at least 6 months worth of visibility on your guests, then even better. I think my advice would be here is to, you first of all have to work out what feels like a good amount for you. So if I get a whole house booking, and let's say it's £2,500 for a weekend, then obviously I need to work out, do I mind spending every £250? I'm making these up, but £250 for every £250 I spend on Facebook and Instagram, do I get one £2,500 booking? So a 10% there. If that feels okay to me, then I've got good return on my investment on those platforms. And that's kind of the way that I looked at it. Equally, if I was having one booking for one room, which was £500, obviously I wouldn't want to, using the same 10% approach, I wouldn't really want to spend more than £50. I also sort of looked at it in terms of how many people have I reached with my £10 or £25, you know, and then how many people could I have reached, could I have maxed out? Now, obviously, for any accommodation, unless you're a big hotel with lots of budget, you're never probably going to max out your audience. That said, when you do sort of say, actually, I just want 49-year-olds that have got a 50th birthday coming up, obviously your audience really does start to narrow down. So varying different approaches, but, you know, back to my friends, Paul and Aggie over in Levy at this moment in time. Of course, they've got no UK guests coming over because nobody can travel. They've got this kind of beautiful sauna hot tub setup, and they're basically marketing to people that are within an hour's drive of Levy that have, again, a special occasion coming up. And they're doing they're doing that with £25 here, £25 there, and it's working beautifully for them.
That's great. And I love the idea of giving yourself like a 10%, you know, I would spend 10% of what I would make on marketing, I think, or on ads, really. I think that's important. And, you know, the interesting thing about exploring social media ads, you know, Instagram and Facebook, and even Pinterest, now that we know that Pinterest is on the rise with the ads, is the exposure to more people. And it's really interesting because, you know, we've been involved in events where, you know, we've paid to be involved in the event, and our exposure has been so much less than if we just put up a Facebook ad. And I think, you know, that it's about that exposure and awareness. And, you know, there's nothing better than when you speak to someone and they say, "Oh, I've heard of you." Yeah. And, you know, it's like, yep, because I've been blasting my ads out there. But it's that subconscious kind of awareness. And, you know, it's that age-old adage, you know, the 7 times that, you know, someone's got to see you 7 times before they make a decision. And it's true, you know, people need to know, like, and trust you. And they don't do that after the first time they hear about you. Sometimes they do, you know, like you said, sometimes they'll see that ad and they're like, oh, this is exactly what I was looking for. We have another student who went through our social media supercharge. This was our free program that we ran during the pandemic to help people, you know, just get some free social media skills under their belt. And I think she was a head teacher, and she was kind of ready to move on from that position. She wanted to kind of do something different. And in our program, she, similar to you, she's had this dream, this vision of setting up it's like a farm, and there's lots of animals. And anyway, I spoke to her recently, and she's got about 20 or 30 animals now, you know, between llamas and horses, and, you know, she's doing rescue horses, and now she's doing animal therapy, and she's got miniature goats, and she's got, you know, cats, and she's got chickens, and the chickens are right outside the camping pods, and they, you know, they lay your egg that you then eat that morning for breakfast. It's like the best egg you've ever had. So, you know, these experiences, that's what it is, right? It's an experience. And if you can provide a wonderful experience for people, but what she did was she did the same thing you guys did. She put up she took some of her best social media posts on Instagram and then put a little bit of boosting money behind it. And she said she got bookings, you know, just straight from the boosting and awareness ads.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a couple of other things that we perhaps haven't touched on, and there's a gift that I will give to your listeners. You know, we're all kind of experts because we've got the good old mobile phone, right? So all of a sudden we are photographers and videographers. And even if you don't think that you are, if you have an Apple phone, I would thoroughly recommend you testing out the portrait mode. It makes your photos beautifully better. But just play around and go around your home, go around your environment, take snaps here and there, because, you know, the more of that you can do, the better. And start just getting used to the tools of Facebook and Instagram. And you'll soon know what kind of resonates and what doesn't. But portrait mode, particularly on the iPhone, is fantastic. It makes your photos look beautiful. If you haven't,
that is so true. I love portrait mode, and that's where it like blurs out the background and focuses in on something. Yeah, I've done some really beautiful pictures with my children with that.
Yeah, it's definitely worth doing. And then the other thing I'd sort of say is, don't ever feel that you need to feed the beast. Like, if you haven't posted for a week or two, because I talk to people often, they're like, God, I just need to keep doing it on a Wednesday and a Friday and at this time and all those other things. Now, I'm sure potentially if you've got lots and lots and lots of content, and sorry, Joy, I hope this, I don't know whether you're, but
you're treading my
biology ground here, but you know,
here's what we teach. We teach that you should pre-schedule your posts.
Okay.
And we encourage students to pre-schedule 2 to 4 weeks in advance. Okay. And that is so that they don't have to worry about doing both, you know, like juggling the property. And what we do is we say, set aside in the beginning, just set aside 1 half day or 1 day a week, get everything scheduled, and, you know, and then you have 4 more days to do all the other stuff, right? If you're the one doing it. But I get what you're saying. The one thing we found when, just from our company, was whenever we had holidays, we would, like, the whole company would shut down and we would just stop doing social media for like 2 weeks. It was like such a hard slog to get like all the engagement back up again. So what we just started doing was during the holidays, we just would pre-schedule all the posts, and then every couple of days go in and reply to people. And it just like you said, feed the beast, but it just kept the engagement, because as soon as you stop posting, the engagement drops off, and that's what takes forever to build back up again, because you only get your stuff organically seen by a small percentage of people. So, you know, that's what we did. But I know what you're saying. Like, don't beat yourself up if you haven't posted every day.
It was honestly such a source of stress, because we were juggling everything. And I'd be like, oh God, like, I haven't posted. And, you know, my husband works at Facebook, and like, I really ought to be like posting more. And it was like, we should have got our shizzle together and really kind of had a posting strategy. So your tips and tricks are absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
And I'd
or
say
you just hire a tech pixie, right? Like, that's what
exactly. We really should have done that.
We should have.
But I like your tips there. I do like your tips there, the scheduling, because it takes 100%. That sort of, it is stressful. But I mean, look, the reality is if you don't post on Friday, I doubt you're going to see one of your community, or you're not going to hear from your community in uproar on Saturday going, I haven't seen you. Where's your?
You never will hear that.
You know what I mean? It's sort of so from that perspective, please don't anybody kind of beat yourselves up about it. I think more considered, less is more impactful. Really think about your time. We've all only got 24 hours in one day, right? I mean, it may change in my son's lifetime, I don't know, with all the technology and so on, but time is precious. So just use it wisely in the most wise way possible. And I would sort of advocate that because these can become very stressful. And take your hints and tips, and you're talking there about things like pixel and boosting and so on. And if you can take some of that to make actually what you're doing, is this the best use of your time to bring in new customers or guests, call them what you will, in the right way.
Yeah. And then I'd say when you have got them there, really nurture that community. So we really did over invest in responding to every single post, engaging with everybody when they wrote something, and then you'd have that ongoing dialogue. And we found that we had a really high percentage of people that would come back, return guests, repeat bookings. And that's because we continued to nurture that community. And that's, again, I think where Facebook, Instagram, social media, you can do that. And it's so important when you're, running a hospitality business, because you kind of want those returning guests again.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, a returning guest, the lifetime value of a returning guest is much higher than just those one-off guests, which is why it's so important to take care of the people that come into your community. I mean, I've always said organic social media is about community. Paid social media is about getting new leads into that community, right? So, really your organic strategy is about what you said, no comment left behind. That's what we teach here. Always reply to everyone. And it's such a simple concept, the no comment left behind, but it is such a mega concept, because that is the difference between an engaging social media account and an unengaged social media account. Just think about it this way. Like if you called your friend every day and she never called you back for a week, she's probably, you're probably, either she's ignoring you, which is why that, like if I call my friend every day for a week and then she never answers, I'm going to stop calling her, right? She doesn't want to hear from me. So that's what happens it's the same thing with commenting on posts. If people comment on your post and you don't comment back, you're setting yourself up for them not coming back. And actually we know the cost of getting a new customer is much higher. Think about that. If you have a 500 pound, expenditure for 2 nights, for example, and you spend 50 pounds to get them in, well, if you don't do a good job of nurturing that relationship, you're just going to have to keep spending 50 pounds to get more people. Or you can take that 500 pound customer and then they come back every year. And for 10 years, you've turned a 500 pound customer into a 5,000 pound customer. It's such an important concept there. So I love that you touched on that.
Yeah, I think you just need to work out what's right for you in that spend to get back that booking or sale, call it what you will. So I've obviously, as you know, worked with lots and lots of businesses. Some business will be like, well, we're a high margin business, so we're happy to spend 50, 60, 70% of the sale value on marketing because of lifetime value, which is ultimately what you're talking about there, isn't it? And that so yeah, you just need to work out what's right for you.
No, I think you're right on that. Well, I've taken a lot of your time. Obviously, we've not talked a lot about the pandemic. You guys ended up making a decision for a lifestyle change for your family, and so you're no longer running this. But of course, you're connected to people in the industry. How have your friends managed the pandemic? And do you have any tips for people who are going to be coming out of, they've been on this holding pattern for a year, waiting for people to be able to use their Airbnbs? What tips do you have for them?
Yeah, 100%. So I'm consulting and working with lots of brands in the hospitality space, and it's been a brutal year for them, really, really tough. I'd say, what I have been saying, continue to nurture your community. When you can open again, they will come back, but they need to know you're still there. So don't stop. And I think, a lot of brands have been brilliant at sort of thinking about how they can still connect with their consumers, whether that's kind of offering virtual events, just continuing to post and engage, share pictures, so that people are dreaming right now about going away and having a break. So posting imagery about what they can get to when we can get there is still really, really powerful. And when they're able to book, you want to make sure that you're front of mind. And then, I think it's, now more than ever, nurturing that community, understanding who your audience are, being ready with open arms when they can come back. Don't know whether you've got any other
Yeah,
tips.
I think I'd just add, stay as positive as you can. We're all coming out the other side of this, and I truly believe this last 12 months, every individual has probably had a lot of time to reflect and sort of think, okay, be more purposeful in life and appreciative. And I think the hospitality, the food sector, people will appreciate those experiences more. So there's definitely, and we're seeing it already, of course, in the news, there's definitely the desire to go out to the restaurants, to go and stay at places. So right at this moment in time, as Amanda says, think about your proposition, refine it whilst you haven't got anybody there, because trust me, by the time the doors start opening, you're not going to have a second. Post as much as you can and keep connected.
And that's a great point. Maybe now is a really good time to get your pre-scheduled strategy off of the ground, so that when you're flooded with customers, because we all want to go on holiday desperately, that you've got that running in the background already. Because one of the tips that one of our social media coaches, Sophie Bradley, gives, she's one of our Instagram coaches, she always gives the tip that you should stockpile your images. So, don't take a picture just for the purpose of social media at that moment, but actually take photos all the time as you're going around. Number one, you'll become a better photographer. But number two, you then have a stock of photos from all year round that you can tap into. No one knows that it was last year's photo, not this year's photo. As long as there's snow on the ground, it's winter, or as long as there's a flower coming out, it's spring. So you have the opportunity there to kind of reuse imagery. And if you're taking it all the time, that also gives you a stockpile of images to use later. And I've always loved that tip.
It's great advice.
It's a great opportunity now just to kind of get your house in order, get all of that stuff that you don't normally get to do done, as you say, capturing more content, scheduling posts, testing other platforms that you may not have had an opportunity to have a play around with,
Well, Rosalind here says she wants to go on holiday. I think we're making everybody jealous right now.
Yeah.
So how about that? I'd love to know. So where are you guys going to go on your first holiday? Are you going to try and go out of the UK? Are you going to try and stay within the UK?
Yeah, well, we had somewhere booked for St Ives that I think I was probably a little bit keen for. Back end of back end.
But funnily enough, if we can get away in July, we're actually going to Italy, back to where it all began, the dream, where we were first inspired. Because I think throughout this whole journey, I think we all are in need of that inspiration again. And so, hopefully, if we can get there, we're going to go back to Italy.
We're desperately trying to do the same thing. I haven't seen my parents in 2 years. So, because I was in America, the last time I was in America was the end of 2000. Well, it was like the autumn of 2019. So, by the time this autumn rolls around, it'll be 2 full years, which I've never gone that long. I think prior to this lockdown, I had gone 8 months without seeing my parents. And that was when I was an exchange student in France when I was 15 years old. So, just to go that long without seeing your family is huge. And I know a lot of people in the UK have had to go without seeing their family, and they can drive to their parents' houses, and I can't, get on a plane. So it's the same no matter where you are, but we're trying to do the same thing because we're trying to meet in Italy. That's what we're hoping for. But of course, my husband's a huge fan of staycations, and very often when I've had visa issues, we've been kind of we've had to stay here, and we've gone and visited Scotland and Wales, and we've yet to do Northern Ireland or Ireland, but we've really been able to explore Cornwall as well, and and the New Forest and the Yorkshire Dales, and there's so much to explore in the UK. It's so beautiful here.
Totally.
That's absolutely true. I think this is a great opportunity for us all to really embrace the environment and the country that we live in, to be honest. I think that is a huge positive. And even listening to you talk there, you'll be more appreciative when we do get the opportunity to do that. So, anybody that's running their own accommodation business or food business, restaurant, pub, whatever, people are going to be really embraced, I think, and grateful for creating those memories again.
Well, here's hoping we all get our vaccines soon. I'm not quite old enough, and I doubt you guys are either, but we're going to get there eventually. Rosemary says, great to hear your story. I want to thank you both very much for your time today and all of your tips and advice. You've been very generous talking about your story, the ups, the downs, the good stuff, the bad stuff, but really what you've touched on, more importantly than anything, is vision, knowing your customer, over delivering, providing a great service. Don't forget to ask for recommendations, because that creates repeat customers. And, and then also just, I love this concept of just creating a beautiful space, and you can see that you guys have carried that into your own personal life, but creating a beautiful space that gives people that break that they want, and knowing who that person is. And also you gave us some great tips as well on social media, no comment left behind, which reiterates what we do. We've had a great discussion about pre-scheduling and also about boosting and awareness ads to just get the word out there about what you're doing. And I loved your tip around keeping it local, especially for the UK audience, because that's people will drive 3 to 4 hours to get there. So thank you so much. That was a tip-filled podcast, and I know we've got, golly, we have some tech pixies who have been waiting for this interview for a long time. I know I'm going to get a lot of positive feedback about this. So thank you so much.
I've loved it. It's been great. Thank you so much.
Very kind. And anybody feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn.
Yeah, really happy to help. Any tips, get in touch with us. We're on LinkedIn.
So Lee Jay and Amanda Burningham, you can find them on LinkedIn and connect with them. And again, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
Thanks,
it's great to see you all.
Take care. Bye.